was halfway through before I remember that I'm supposed to be recording something. Nikki is hoping to join us, but she is on a budget deadline. So just in case,
No
I sort of
problem.
had a
Okay.
fairly impassioned message from Nikki because the deadline is tomorrow.
Awesome. Okay. So it's been a while. It's been a minute. Let's go ahead and just go over what we're going through. We're going through the change principle. What is it? So it was developed through certified coaching program materials. It envelops positive intelligence, emotional intelligence, and neuroscience. And it is created as a way to build a framework to approaching people leadership. Now, why it was created? Because people are complex and it's difficult to remember how to break our own preconceived ideas of management. It's kind of universal throughout a person's life. So we want to understand our biases and find ways to coach ourselves and others through those so that there is a more healthy, intact relationship. And the benefits, it helps to build others so that leaders can focus on bigger issues, right? So, what we did in our first session was really recognize that the more tools that we have to move from telling to asking and to help bring awareness and curiosity not only to ourselves but to our teams, we can focus on the bigger issues. We also improve accountability when we do that, and it does create collaboration. So, of the first things that we had in our homework was to bring an object that you may have that shows that represents your growth. Do you have anything that you were able to find that helps to represent your growth? And I'll go first. So I had, and I'm gonna go back and forth from sharing and not sharing so that I can kind of we can all see each other. So I have a rock. On one side, it says problem, and on the other side, it says solution. And this was a gift from another coach that said, every problem has a solution. So many times when I get into a situation where I'm dealing with a client or I'm talking with one of my kids, I will literally on the solution side, I'll put it in my hand and I just rub the solution. And I'm like, please come to me, please come to me, please come to me. So this is something that sits on my desk so that I always recognize that there is a solution to a problem. I just need to slow down, be curious, and I'm sure it'll come to me. Who wants to share what their growth piece is?
Well, I'm happy to go first because full disclosure, Carol, that this information was not in the email that I sent to everybody this morning. So
Oh,
everybody is doing very well at not looking terrified.
oh, but it was in the thing that I had sent out. But yeah.
Ah, perfect. Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, I'm just sitting thinking, oh my God, that wasn't in the email that I went through this morning. But so I'm happy to go first because I have got something in front of me which will just give everybody else a couple of moments to think on the spot. Um, so for me, I've got a little timer on my desk, a little kind of timery thing on my desk, and I've done some, which I now won't be able to shut up. I'm just going to go off in 10 minutes time. Um, I've done some kind of growth work for me, and I've worked quite hard on improving my habits and my focus. So that timer sits on my desk, and I use it to kind of set timeframes for periods of work that I want to spend either interrupted or periods of time that I'm happy to muck about. Okay, I'm going to spend 10 minutes just looking at my emails or checking on LinkedIn or things like that. So it kind of keeps me on track and doesn't let me get distracted and fall down terrible rabbit holes when I'm supposed to be focusing on things. So that kind of makes me think about me and my kind of growth this year because it's helped me be much more productive and not get lost in quite so many rabbit holes.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Jenna, what about you?
So I've never been particularly like artsy or whatever, but before, like last year I went to like a clay class, and then so mine is like this little thing that I made. It's like a candle
You
holder that
made
I
that.
made. Yeah, and it was with like help, obviously, but yeah, I did make it, so I guess it's, a reminder of things that you can do and the things you can learn.
Nice. Excellent. Oh, and Augustina's in, or is that just her? Augustina, you feeling okay?
I just,
I'm just
Okay, camera off.
like
That's fine.
I can, to be fair, I can go because I'm in my childhood bedroom, so I've got a shit ton of stuff that I can grab. Um, but I've been trying to change how I lead and how I manage quite a bit in the last month and be like less controlling and more coaching. So I'm changing my colors. So I grabbed that chameleon.
Oh, I
So,
love that. Look at him.
but yeah, I will be like, I'll be here listening, but I might not speak a lot because my mouth quite hurts, but I'm here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One more. James, what about you?
So this is going to be shameless reverse engineering because I'm not at my work desk. In fact, slippery sidewalks, Carol, caused me to be at home. The only object on the table that I'm sitting at home is the match a leaf game, where one has to match the leaf to the tree. It's a memory game, so you turn over the cards, etc. But I certainly think that a lot of my task as a manager is, understanding that our human inventory is not uniform, to make sure that in order to get the best out of people for the organization, you are being exceptionally thoughtful about the way in which those people are best enabled, bearing in mind their particular personalities, skills, anxieties, aspirations, etc., to achieve what they can achieve as individuals, as opposed to taking a sort of one size fits all approach to people management.
Got it. I like that. Yes, every leaf is unique. If you are the tree and the branches and every leaf is someone on your team, they're all going to wave in the wind a little differently, if you will.
I mean, I should say that I comprehensively lost the game of Match a Leaf when this was actually played, but that's detail.
I just remember the one that's the poison ivy. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen again. Here we are. That's the right one. Beautiful. Well, I appreciate you having that. And we can definitely share with each other after our break as well. We'll get the rest of you guys because I'm really curious of what you have. So let's go ahead and go over the framework for coaching, because this is how we've kind of built today's session. We're going to be breaking out each section and doing a work, if you will, a breakout session or workshop. So why the framework? Well, up to now, we've explored individual tools and principles. We have compassion, hearing, feedback, growth. But this slide brings all of it together. It's kind of the big picture of what it means to coach as a leader, not just using coaching tools, but embodying a coaching way of leading. This is the framework. It's kind of like a layered system from mindset to method. So it starts with who we are. That's our self-awareness and our emotional intelligence. Then it moves how we show up for others. So that's the trust and the presence. And then how we communicate. That's the questions and the curiosity and the feedback. And then finally, how we actually help others grow and sustain the changes that they make. Now, connecting this to our prior learning. So if you think back to our sessions 1 and 2, you'll see pretty much every concept reflected here. So emotional intelligence gave us the self-awareness foundation. ADKAR showed us how change actually happens. Doing the statements to questions taught us how to shift from control to curiosity. And together, these all sit under the umbrella of the framework for coaching. Now, you may notice that it also mirrors how people grow. So we start with awareness. We learn how to build connections with others. We learn how to communicate effectively. And then we all need to learn how to sustain that kind of growth. So as you learn this framework, think about it as both a leadership model, but it's also a human development model. And I'm curious, before we break it down, you had a self-check-in. That might not, it's going to be on the second page. The self-check-in page of from all of the pre-work, from the pre-work that I had sent out. Where are you in this framework element? So this awareness will guide you through the next few exercises. And that's the one that says self-check, where am I strongest and where do I stretch? And it goes through each one of these 4 quadrants. So if we think about that, I would be curious if we want to put into the chat, which framework area is your stretch? I'll give everybody a chance to find it, and then you can kind of put A, B, C, or D, just so I can kind of get an idea of the group's kind of strength overall.
Carol, do you want someone to volunteer on the?
No, you can go and just put it in the chat too.
Yeah, okay.
James, you're always welcome to volunteer.
Carol, can I just ask, are you when you say is your stretch, do you mean the one that you feel is your weakest area?
Correct.
Okay, thank
One
you.
where you've got something that you're strongest in, but then you've got your stretch. Like, I'm getting there, I'm just not quite there.
If I am welcome, then my stretch is definitely communicating effectively. In other words, listening more than speaking.
Okay.
I've spoken to say that.
Nice. Okay. As you're all putting this in here, and again, I am the only Yankee in the room, so sometimes I sit here and think, crap is changing here so fast and so quickly. My desire to jump onto the next task or to move too quickly has just stalled. I'm like, why do I even bother? Why do I even jump to the next task? Because 5 minutes from now, something new is going to hit the fan. So I'm just going to sit here and wait and see what happens next. Let's just say my own societal issues have caused me to be even more patient than I was before. So it looks like we're all except for A. So that's good, which means that our first exercise is going to be our best exercise, most likely. So let's go ahead and review. So now that we have had a chance to look at the framework, hold on to that page because that's where we're going to use that in the first exercise. I want to start, we're going to start with our foundation. So now the foundation is what grounds everything else. It's how we show up before we even open our mouths, right? Goes back to that emotional intelligence that we did in our last session. It's about demonstrating the ethical behavior, embodying a coaching mindset, and staying anchored in EQ and change readiness. So when this foundation is strong, which based off of our answers, everybody feels that the foundation is not their stretch. So hopefully that's something that we're strongest at. The rest of the coaching framework, that building trust, communicating, nurturing, all of that becomes much easier. So as we move into our first exercise, think of it as checking the roots of our lovely tree, right, James? Before the branches actually grow out. I think I'm going to use that metaphor a lot today. And let's see what it means to actually lead from the foundation side of it. So this slide shows how the foundation of coaching links to our self-awareness, our ADKAR, and you've already rated yourself. So let's test that. So I would like you to, if you have it available, pull up your Harvard Business Review, which is the best leaders normalize emotion at work. That was the one that was the more recent article. That one was just done this year. And the focus is really emotional honesty, psych safety, and overall emotional intelligence. So when we think about that article, or in general, what does it look like? And I'm going to start calling on people. Where'd my little notes go? What does it look like to normalize emotion without losing professionalism? Let's see. I see your camera's on, CM, so why don't you go ahead and jump in here? Right, you're muted.
Was the question, what does it look like to normalize emotion?
Yes, without losing professionalism.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, one that I've pondered quite a lot. I mean, I think it's really important to show that you have some emotions, and not to maintain like a very closed demeanor. So for me, I try and show that I am affected emotionally, but that I'm calm and that I'm thinking straight. And if I need time, I need to take some time. But for me, it's quite important to enable people, whoever they are, whether they're more junior than you in the organization or more senior, to see that you are a living, breathing human being who has feelings.
Kasha, what about you?
I'm really sorry. I feel a little bit flustered because I've been having major technical issues,
Oh, I'm so
which is
sorry.
typical, so forgive me for that.
That's okay.
Can you hear me?
I can, yeah. Can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, so we can hear you.
Did you hear the question, Kasha?
I'll go ahead and let Kasha get her computer back to where she is. Let me go into the.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yes. Let me do Tiziana. Let me ask you a question about the HBR article, or in general. How does acknowledging emotion strengthen rather than weaken your leadership credibility?
Well, actually, I think that emotions, to me, I mean, I'm completely aligned with the article when it says that emotions are valuable pieces of data that basically offer us clues about needs, values, and boundaries. So I think it's really important to acknowledge them. And again, aligned with Siam's view, I think it's important for our team, whether they're peers or subordinates and so on, that they understand that we are human beings. So of course we get frustrated, we get upset just like they do. So I think it's important that we share that, always, staying professional though. And then I think that also this represents a emotional honesty, so that we are grounded in a way that we can actually build trust. And we can help create more resilient teams as well.
Excellent. Agreed. It's very, I'd say it's somewhat difficult to show emotions as a leader for fear that you'll look weak or you'll have the inability to still direct others. And it is definitely a time where trust from both sides needs to be established. If your people are trusting you, you're able to be more vulnerable, and vice versa as well. Different question. I'm going to go to you, Rob. When is the last time you've actually seen a leader model healthy emotional expression?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, got some kind of examples from my last role. I mean, there was quite a lot of leadership change kind of while I was there, and the chief executive that kind of came in most recently, kind of while I was, I think she did that really effectively. There was a certain amount of chaos essentially in the kind of organization when she took over, and what she was kind of incredibly good at was in public or in front of a big audience, like in front of the whole organization or in front of big teams, she would just seem like kind of very strong but also very open to what they had to say. But then if she was talking to you kind of one to one or in a small group, there'd just be this kind of incredible kind of emotional openness but just real kind of willingness to listen. And one of the first things that she did was, I think, like talk to everyone that worked there and just said, kind of, how are you doing? But obviously, because there was like a lot of stuff that had been happening, what should I know and what do you want me to do about it, without necessarily kind of over kind of committing that she would fix everything, but just saying, like, I just want to be aware of this, and I'll do what I can.
Having somebody who could actually show you as a leader healthy emotional expression, how did that help you as a subordinate to her?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really like it did just make you feel that you could go to her with anything. I mean, kind of the kind of interim manager that I had in the meantime was a very like task-oriented person, and you kind of go into meetings and it would straight away be like, all right, like what are we doing? What's the plan? Which didn't necessarily going to make you feel like kind of being able to open up. So yeah, I mean, it does put you in a state where kind of you're just happy to share anything, and from their point of view, from the point of view of a manager, kind of you want to know that stuff because it helps you understand the wider context and be able to make kind of good choices at a strategic level too.
Okay. It's important to understand that you'll get more out of your people when there's that reciprocal emotional understanding. And going to the neuroscience, those mirror neurons, right? So if you're able to show emotional strength while still having a level of vulnerability, their mirror neurons are going to match you. So you really are the mirror for them to be able to feel safe and to understand what it means to be emotionally available while still remaining professional. And we did spend the time in the last session, but it's something that I think every day, because people change every day, it's something that's consistently growing. So what we want to do in this next breakout session is to help ourselves, help each other recognize how self-awareness and change readiness drive coaching effectiveness. So I'm going to put you just into pairs. So the first thing you'll want to do is pull out your self-check and discuss between the two of you which area was your lowest. And in doing so, find out how does that show up when you lead others through change. So if you're already feeling a little low in one of these areas, and yet you're also trying to And change is that broad term. Leading others, giving feedback, all of it is a change component because you're trying to modify something, whether it be growing up, changing sides, or just bringing awareness. It's all change. And then when it's time to come out of your meetings, I want you to choose one coaching mindset shift that the group agrees would elevate leadership across GLP. And those are just some examples, from fixing to exploring, from judging to noticing. Just what do you think you could bring as a team to this group that's going to help us elevate leadership across the whole company? And then obviously just pick one spokesperson to make a shift statement, if you will. So once you figure out what is the one coaching mindset, figure out a shift statement. So I'm going to put you into groups of 2. We are even today, so I don't have to do any breakouts that are 3 people. So we're going to assign, let's see, we're going to assign it automatically. We need 1, 2, 3, 4 rooms. And I'm going to go ahead and create those. So hopefully you have all your stuff raring to go. I'm going to open the rooms. We're going to do this for about 5 or 6 minutes. Jen's got a timer. I'll put my lovely timer on as well. I will see you and I'll pop in. But if you have any questions before we go out, any questions on what we're looking to try to accomplish in our breakout right now? We're good? Thumbs up? Okay. I'm sending you into your rooms.
Did you see Augustina's message, Carol?
Oh, no, I did not. What did she say?
Yeah, you may be one man down.
Could you skip me for this breakout? Yes. Let me, hold on. If that's the case, let me just see. Jenna, I'm going to put you to a different room. Go ahead and go, and I'll, Jenna, you were going to be with Augustina, and I'm just going to move you over to.
Hi.
Carol, I just wanted to say sorry. I feel like the gods of both the internet connection and a laptop, functioning laptop, are not with me. But hopefully from now on, they will be plain sailing. I can fully engage
Hopefully.
now. Everything seems to be working now. But
Yay.
apologies for the troubles at the beginning of the call.
It's all good. It's all good.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're back. Hopefully you had a chance to go through some of your self-check-in. CM didn't mean to abandon you. All right, so hopefully there's a spokesperson for each of the 3 groups. So let's hear one coaching mindset from each room. And let's kind of start with, we realized we need to fill in the blank. Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to, just on the basis that I haven't muted myself. So we talked a bit about organisationally, it seems that we need to talk less and listen more. And that comes from a good place because everybody is passionate, everybody is engaged, and everybody is trying to move forward at a really, really fast pace. And there's a lot of time pressure about what we do. We've got an awful lot of experts, who are kind of really, really enthusiastic, and that doesn't leave very much space for silence and for thinking and for processing. And therefore we sort of thought, as a sort of a change statement, which I think is going to be challenging for some of us in the rooms, because I very much echo James, your sort of find it quite difficult to talk less and listen more, but sort of organisationally that shift would help us as managers to support our teams to find their own solutions and to feel more autonomous and to feel like they've got more capability because they're given a bit of breathing space to find the answers rather than us all being quite so keen to rush in and help them find them or help them by giving them to them.
So the realization is if there was an opportunity to slow down, even
Yeah.
just a little bit,
Yes.
so that there is pause for the brain to kind of catch up and think,
Yeah.
that would improve and elevate leadership overall.
We think so, yeah.
All right. What about another group? Thoughts? What was your realizations?
Happy to volunteer, James.
Oh, sorry, that's us. Yeah, look, I think Jen just spoke for me, frankly. So
For you in particular? Go ahead, Tiziana.
So basically, we discussed exactly sometimes being way too much eloquent in conversations, but also try and build in trust or trust that was betrayed, actually. So I think if we strengthened this area, like relationship building and communication as well, our leadership impact would improve because we would quickly build a foundation of trust with the employees by validating their experiences. And I think this would unlock their willingness to be more vulnerable about the challenges that they have. And at the same time, I believe that this would accelerate our ability to collaboratively address and overcome performance issues or all sorts of issues that we have.
Yeah, Tiziana, I mean, you were really focusing on the ability to mitigate the expectation gap and the need for, well, the way in which honest communication can help mitigate that.
And what about the third group? I'm going to get back to that one. I have an idea, but third group. That was what?
Yeah, I mean, can we talked about both at an organizational and at RA level, kind of wanting to move on to the next thing rather than kind of taking some time out to say, kind of, how is this done? Kind of what can we learn from it? So, for example, it's, kind of we have an all staff meeting every fortnight, and it's, kind of we all quite often look forward and saying, kind of, what things are we doing over the next month, and far less often kind of will we look back and say, kind of, how did this go? And even less often say, kind of, what are the lessons? What are we going to do? Kind of differently based on that in future. So yeah, it's kind of something that kind of the tech and data team is doing at a team level, and I think that's been kind of really effective. But kind of what can we do at an organization level, kind of where we can take a step back and say, other than just stats, because like I think kind of we are quite good at kind of sharing stats. Other than the stats, kind of what are the lessons and what are we going to do, which is different in future.
So it's interesting, right? Because that's where I was going to kind of go with what Tiziana and James were saying. How often are there reflection moments post project, post meeting? Is there a way of working where there is opportunity, even if it's not the beforehand or during that there's the pauses, but do we have opportunity after something's happened for reflection?
I mean, my sense is it happens fairly often at a team level or at a kind of, a sub-team level or at the level of a few people. But I'm not aware that it happens particularly often, if at all, at a kind of whole organizational level. Other than like one thing which I can think of, which is the kind of campaigns and legal and tech and data, the way that we did like a couple of months ago, where we spent kind of some time looking at that. But other people who have been longer may be able to kind of give like a fuller answer, that it does seem to be mostly at the team level and less.
If I could just jump in, we did a reflection exercise for sort of towards the end of 2025, which we did in teams, but all on the same day, and that's sort of been captured. And Jen can probably say more, or Maya if she was here, about what's happening what's happening with it. But what I would say, and I've been here the longest of anybody, is that we tend to do this in an unsystematic way. It's sort of like periodic. Oh, well, let's have a reflection exercise because it's the end of the year. But it's not a systematic approach. And I think a lot of the things that people have said that have come up and that came up in our little group as well before I rushed off and abandoned it, uh, are around generally feeling under pressure to get on, like let's get straight to action, let's think about what's coming up, let's do the next thing, etc. That's a really common theme, I think. But we have had these reflection moments, but they're not, I wouldn't say they're systematic, and I wouldn't say they're part of the DNA of the organization.
I'd agree with that. I mean, I think the metaphor is that the train's at the station and the passengers are still trying to get off or on, and the train, the engine suddenly takes off, and we do that a bit, which is in some ways a strength of the organization, the looking forward. And I think there is a sort of, we don't want to dwell too much on the mistakes because we know we will make them. What we do is hit and miss. But there is a balance there, and sometimes there is criticism, which is sort of inconsistent with the just let's move on theory. I think that probably the problem situation is where there is criticism of something that has happened, not accompanied then by a fuller reflection as to why and what in the future.
And Tiziana, I want to give you your hands.
Thank you. So I believe in my own team, we do have some moments of reflection, especially because we tend, given the nature of our roles, we tend to implement new things within the company, and we've been leading the business transformation of the organization. So, for example, yesterday, my communication to the team. So when I was preparing it, I said to myself, I just don't want to go there and deliver the latest updates, the latest implementations. So the way I built my communication was around, okay, we started in a place where, we didn't have any of this in place, and now we go here, and now we are expanding. So for me, it was a little bit of a journey. I really hope that this sort of message was conveyed to the rest of the team. But I think for me, especially because leading the business transformation hasn't been a linear exercise, there have been bumps in the road and test and trials and failures and so on. I think it was really important to deliver that. And yeah, it's good to see a sequence of actions there that have been leading us to a certain stage, basically.
That's excellent. So, and one thing that I did hear from Siam and a little bit from James and Jen, you were kind of voluntold. How do we put something systemically as a reflection into GLP? Any ideas? Anybody can chime in. I'm just calling out Jen.
I just have a reflection. I do find that there have been many attempts over the years to do this, and I do feel like most of the time this happens on a team level, and I feel like the major hurdle that we have is just how fast-paced the stuff that we do is. So, like we've mentioned before, I think what the reason why we haven't succeeded in implementing something consistent is because we always just focus on the next thing that is urgent, and that really, really impacts our effectiveness in implementing something that would just stick for a long time or for across all of the teams. Also, the complication there is that all teams work slightly differently or work on different things, and the reflections will have different nature.
I don't know if you guys saw what Rob put in the chat. Take a look at that too. That's also a good one. Jen, you're muted, but your hand's up.
Yeah, so it's obviously so Sam mentioned we did do a reflection exercise at the end of 2025. May is in the process of kind of analysing and kind of collating all that data, but we are going to use that at along with some other bits and pieces of feedback and some information that we've got at our January away day at the end of the month, which a big part of that is going to be kind of focusing on plans for 2026, kind of moving forward. What would be really interesting, I think, is if we could commit to doing something like that Rob has just put in the chat. So, whether that's kind of the or a kind of a similar model, so that when we sit and we kind of look at the plans for 2026 and how that works forward, we're building in the space and the capacity to do some element of reflection, even if it's got to be a slightly fast-paced, slightly chaotic reflection activity to fit with who we are and what we do and how fast we're trying to, I think I love James' analogy of like, the train is still moving and there's people trying to get on and off, and that just sort of sums it up, I think, in quite a lot of cases. So I think sort of asking the organization to stop and do, kind of reflection activities. We're a way off that, but could we find something that we weave through the plans that we're making for 2026 that means that we are being more systematic about how we have those reflections, and that there is some space for sort of thinking and reflection time?
Yeah, what I like about what Rob's done, James, I see your hand, is it's brief, right? It's a one-pager, so everybody fills it out. Or it's a 20-minute discussion where you capture it maybe now with an AI capture that asks the same questions, so that you can start to see the themes. But then the bigger exercise is, now that you've recognized the themes, how do you change them? Then it's the change of behavior, which goes right back to the foundation of everything we do has a change component. James?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that sort of exercise on a full organization basis is quite hard, because the more people you have together, the more difficulty it's more difficult to be as honest as people want to be. I think I think there is I think it's really important, and I think this does happen. And Kasha was talking about the different teams and the way the different teams work, to have that reflection going on at all levels, so bottom up as well, both on a one-to-one basis within your teams and within your team more generally. I think in the legal team, we do spend quite a lot of time when we're just on our own reflecting and sharing anxieties. And we can do that in a smaller group who are working together and understand each other's worlds very well, in a way which is, the thresholds to honesty are kind of lower than they are when you're in a big set piece. Which is not to say that don't try to do that as well. I think that is important. But to make the point that there's actually, I think the bottom up is really, really important, because it's only if you're doing that actually when people get into the bigger group context that is really going to resonate. That's what I want to say.
Okay. Tiziana, I want to get one more minute because I want to get to the next couple of exercises, but I love what you've been saying so far. So what is it you want to add?
Yes, I mean, I agree with James that we need to be honest when we relay all of these feedback and reflection moments. So, because one of the topics that always comes up when we discuss all of these items is psychological safety. So I definitely believe that we need to inject that within the design of our reflection moment. So we need to focus on systems, but not on blame. And we need to make sure that we normalize mistakes and uncertainties, because at the end of the day, this is how it is.
Excellent. Yes, growth mindset. Just because there was an error, and that's one of our reflections before the break. It's the 3 gifts of, that you get from growing. So let's go ahead and move on to our next one. That was great discussion. And it really leads into everything that's on this screen for the foundation. The key here is now that we have the awareness, what do we do to start to implement ADKAR and start to move the needle on behavior changes? So let's go over to co-creating the relationship. This one, there is the coaching moment in your pre-work. That's the very first page. We asked you to come with a coaching moment, think of a recent or upcoming conversation. So in case you want to find that one. And then it's also referencing the HBR article of The Leader as a Coach that was done in 2019. So I'm going to ask a few questions around the article first, and then we're going to go through the purpose of our next breakout. So when we think about leader as a coach, really coaching as a core leadership competency, Kasha, since I didn't get you in the last one because of your microphone, what shifts when we move from telling to asking when, as described in the article, what shifts in people when you move from a more directive to an indirective approach?
Sorry, I'm not 100% sure I've understood the question. Could you
It's okay.
rephrase?
Absolutely. So in the article, it talks about how when we move from telling to asking, it shifts the way people act and behave. Whether you're referencing the article or just through your own thoughts and processes, what shifts in people? What shifts in you as a leader? And what shifts in the person that you're working with when you move from telling to asking?
I just to confirm, I have read the article, but it was before the last session was, when so it's been a while, so I'm not able to direct reference the article. But I believe the biggest shift is growing the confidence of your coachee, because when you just tell them this is what he's doing, there's not much room for them to actually think for themselves. So how are they supposed to make progress and really activate that growth mindset if you're not leaving them the room to do so? So when you start really injecting them with confidence, so really showing them that you trust, that you believe that they can make the right choices and find the right solutions on their own, that's how that growth happens. That's what I believe. That would be the number one thing for me, growing confidence, and through that, basically what I'm trying to say is that showing your coachee that you believe in them, that they're able to not only just find the right solution themselves with just a little bit of guidance. Yeah, I think that's the gist of it.
Great. That's fantastic. Rob, anything to add to that one about what shifts in yourself as a leader or what shifts in the people that you're coaching?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the people that you're working with, I mean, as a manager, you're probably quite a generalist, and kind of people in your team should know more about particular areas of what they're doing than you do. So if you are telling them what to do all the time, you are essentially kind of setting yourself up in a position where you're saying, like, I know more than you about this, whereas that shouldn't really like kind of be the case. You should be empowering people to say, well, actually, I think I know, well, I do know kind of more about this because this is what I spend like 40 hours a week working on. And yeah, kind of certainly when I've worked under people who have had much more of, a telling way in terms of when they're instructing me, and I'm kind of thinking, well, actually, like I know more about this than you do.
Because you're doing it every day.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily like make you want to give your best.
Yeah, that's a very good observation. Yeah, and we just got done talking about, as James said, we have to hear from what's happening below. Jen, yes.
And I think one of the things that I have spent quite a long time working on and thinking about and coming to understand is that even in circumstances where I have got more experience or I do know more, I'm still not always right. And and still, even with my experience and the things that I've done and the things that I've seen, that knowledge doesn't make the way I think something should be done the right way to do it necessarily, either in this case or all cases, or you know, it's kind of whether it's like just in this specific scenario or not, and therefore having that open mind that even though I know how I would deal with this, being able to give team members the space to do it, manage it, develop it in their own way, even if that means that they might make some mistakes, even if that means that we might kind of fall down a couple of times before we get to where we're going. Because if I reflect on the learning through my career, I've learned the most from where I've really fucked up. Like I have learned kind of where things have gone really badly wrong, or I've really made a mistake. I've learned far more, far quicker than I have when I've been told what to do and I've been given a prescriptive set of instructions in terms of how to do something. I've not learned anything, then I've just gone and followed some instructions. So for me, it's also about being able to really take that step back and give people the free rein to make some mistakes and for things not to be perfect first time round, even though you're kind of in your head going, this could be so much better, because you're then supporting that growth and that development in that individual because you're giving them the space to kind of do that.
That sounds as if how you learned may not be how others learn. And giving them the opportunity to drive their own path, stumble on their own rocks, is going to stick more with them in their growth. What we can do as leaders, though, is make sure that they just don't fall off the cliff. Like here,
yeah, with the kind of the little chart in the article with the, you know, there are points where it's got to be really directive coaching here, because
yes,
it really is going to go badly wrong if we don't follow a certain process. But there are other times where we can be so much more fluid and flexible, and
yep.
you know, again, kind of space for people to learn in their own way and develop in their own way.
And those guardrails will be different in each department, because there's different ways, there are different pitfalls in each group, so to speak. Jenna, I have a question for you. So what would it take for coaching to become the default leadership behavior at GLP, in your opinion?
Specifically at Good Law Project.
Mm-hmm.
I think like intentionality, like from the managers, like it's really good that we're learning about it and learning these skills and the knock-on effects of them. But again, like once we leave the session, it could be like we just go back to normal, like how we're managing, and like back into like the throes of GLP, and it is so busy and everyone's so hectic all the time. So I think intentionality and like finding a way to sort of measure that, not necessarily with like specific numbers, but like we have done like a manager's feedback thing. So maybe some more frequent things like that, like feedback from the people that we're managing. And like based on this article and the things that people like, they have more self-awareness and more empathy and more motivation. Um, Maybe looking at how the people we're managing feel around that and whether they feel more motivated, whether they feel more self-aware. That could be a way.
Nice. Excellent. Anybody want to add something? CM, what about you? What would it take for coaching to become a default leadership behavior at GLP?
That's quite a big question, Carol.
One thing.
I think it's step by step. Like I just don't think that there's a silver bullet or a like an easy change that we make. I think it's literally daily effort, and you know, trying to remember to bring coaching principles into every conversation where they're relevant. And sometimes they won't be relevant. Sometimes you just have to give a direction, and that is also part of leadership, right? Um, so for me, it's literally step by step, but I think it is useful to reflect from time to time, but regularly, on how we're doing, because otherwise you either don't see the progress and people get disheartened, or to be honest, I'm long enough in the tooth to have seen many types of development and people development initiatives sort of just fall by the wayside in organizations. So I think that if you don't, I think Jenna used the word intentional. If you don't sort of intentionally review how you're doing, and try and course correct if necessary, then we do have a risk that it will fall by the wayside, I think.
James, thank you, Sam. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously, you need to understand why it's good and successful and beneficial to you as a manager to be a good coach. And I'm probably at the far end of the spectrum in that in many ways, my problem is that I really just want to be a coach. And sometimes should be doing more managing. But I think the reason why I want to be a coach is, I mean, apart from the fact that it's pleasurable from a human point of view, but it achieves results and it makes my life easier, right? So operationally, I kind of want to make myself redundant. I want to make sure that people are enabled to do as much of the doing as they can. And that brings a benefit to me. Things just work better and I have less headaches in a way. And so, sorry, that's a long way of saying to make it happen, you've got to have faith and conviction that it's good for you, good for the organization, good for everybody else. In other words, that it's going to bring success.
I like the idea of making yourself redundant, because that means you've grown your folks to a point where they're self-sustaining and they're learning the tools themselves to be self-aware, socially aware, and manage change within themselves so that they're not so codependent on you. So that's a good observation. And it's about releasing and obviously letting others take the reins, which is sometimes the scariest change as leaders that we can possibly do. Rob?
Yeah, I think also at an organizational level, I think it's a question of, is it something that managers are kind of recognized for, that they're appraised on, that they're kind of incentivized to do? I mean, I think if kind of, we don't have like formal appraisals here really, but if you were kind of, sitting with kind of your boss and it was a kind of question of saying, what have you done from a coaching and a developmental kind of point of view, kind of with your team, like that was a kind of regular question, and if that was something that people's like senior roles were assessed on like a regular basis, and it would definitely happen. I think kind of my experiences of those kinds of meetings is it's like, what have you done? And we say, like, we've done this, this, and this. You say, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think kind of there's definitely kind of appetite for that to happen if it's something which you do want to like fully embed.
It's that's a very in your past, because you do talk about your last organization, they did seem to have some great tools as part of your evaluation, as part of your review. Was there a 360 component to measure the level of coaching practices within leadership?
Not consistently, because it swung wildly based on kind of who was running the organization at the time. But at their best, then yes, that was kind of something which they did try and operate on a consistent basis.
Okay, well, that's when you're going to be measured on something, you do tend to pay more attention to it. And you do put the effort into it because it shows that the company values it, because it's within the measurement of what success looks like. And it helps to reinforce the desire from the organization for all leaders to practice that. So it's a very good point that you bring up. Baby steps, because you can't kind of, swash that one over real quick until the leaders are capable of learning some component of coaching skills, which this program that we're going through is going to give more than enough tools. Even if you only use one of them, it definitely helps to bring more coaching mindset to how you're leading at GLP. So the next breakout session, this is really to help translate trust building theory into micro behaviors. So we're going to break out in groups of 2. What I want you to do is each person's going to discuss their coaching scenario for about 2 minutes, nothing more. So we can kind of decide based off of the different coaching scenarios, you're going to pick one. So the group will then choose one and answer together what agreements or conditions would help this person feel safe to open up, and what exact words could establish trust at the start of the conversation. Can't be something that you build little by little if it's a situation that needs coaching. Something's happening or I'm preparing for something to happen. We have to build trust from the beginning. And then try your best trust builder sentence and try to build one and come back. When we come back to the group, everybody will be able to tell us what that trust building sentence could be. Because maybe in somebody else's scenario, that sentence could help that other person's scenario. Even the people who were not using that particular scenario. So again, trying to build some pieces of information, kind of like that statement to questions exercise. So let's go ahead then. Sorry, that's what I was saying. Formulate your best trust builder sentence to be shared. I'm going to do 3 groups so that we can have Augustina listen, and just 2 of you decide on it. There'll be one group of 2, and then the rest will have 3. But let's go ahead and just kind of see what we can do. I'm going to recreate 3 rooms. See what we can do to capture all of everybody's input. But let's just pick 2. For those of you who have 3 people in the group, pick 2 scenarios to choose from. While I'm doing this, any questions? On what we're doing next. So you're going to pull out your coaching moment, which is the first page. And that's what we're going to use first. Okay, this one's going to take a little bit longer. I'm going to give you guys 8-ish minutes to be able to read through each scenario and then work on answering the questions that we see here. All right, I'm opening it up. And I will see you all in about 8 minutes, maybe up to 10. Need to unmute myself. Okay, I think we might have lost Augustina. I think she probably said, I think that's all my mouth can handle. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about the best trust builder sentence, or answering the questions of, what exact words could help establish trust.
So James and I were talking about, and obviously, we spent far too much time talking about our coaching situations and not enough time talking about the trust builder sentence at the end. But one of the things that we were talking about that I really liked was kind of getting to the bottom of how someone actually feels about the piece of work that they have been given in an honest way. So kind of what are their anxieties? What are they worried about? What are they excited about? What are going to be the positives, and work through those potentially, maybe kind of using the grow model or something like that but to kind of work through how someone's actually kind of feeling about the project that they're working on, and then using that as the starting point. Because from that point you can then work out where are the elements where this is just going to be situational support, situational coaching based, because they're going to be fine, or other elements where we need to be a bit more directive, and kind of but use that as a platform, and kind of going in, asking that question about how they feel will hopefully make sure that they are aware that you're interested in more than just churning out some output.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
I mean, my coaching situation was really about, generally speaking, I was saying to Jen, I know how my guys are doing in the flow of things. Generally speaking, there's confidence, but certainly with one team member, I have much less confidence that I know how they're doing. And so the trust builder for me is articulating my own anxiety first, which is, I'm worried, I don't know how you're doing. That's how I would think about it.
That's a huge trust builder. The vulnerability of a leader being able to say, look, I'm just as scared to give you all of this as you probably are scared to take all of it, is going to be a bridge that you're building. That means that you're working together to get there, and you're there to support them, but you are asking them to be a little bit of a risk taker and take some accountability. That's a great trust builder. What about the other groups?
Kind of one which we had was, you don't necessarily need to answer everything in the next kind of half hour. This can be a bit of a iterative process. I think kind of otherwise there can be a bit of kind of pressure on the person just to kind of feel that they need to solve everything and kind of tie up any loose ends. Whereas if you're just going to say, if we can achieve something now and something else in future, then that's fine. Also, if there's anything that kind of me or the wider team or the wider organization can do to make this kind of easier for you, or kind of any help they can give, again, so it's not as though you're kind of throwing it all onto that one person.
So just to add, I was in the pair with Rob. Our scenario, the one that we consider was like a 3-month check-in for a relatively new starter. And so the ask was to make them feel comfortable in coming up with how they want to shape their role, because the role is new to the organization, and how kind of to make that person feel like it's not just completely on them to define that role, but it's a collaborative process. So really reiterating the fact that it's just not everything on that person to make that decision, and that the organization can support, provide tools, provide different access to training if necessary. But I feel like we also said that in that specific context where there's a person who's spent a few months with the organization, and it's kind of like a review of how things have gone. My thought was that what the first thing for me in my mind, what defines how open that person is able to be, is the quality of the relationship between that person and the manager or the person conducting the appraisal. Because if the relationship is strong, is open, is built on trust, then I believe that the person should be in a position to open up more than if, let's say, it was just with a random person, like, I don't know, someone that is not their manager, that they don't have any relationship with.
Nice. So it's about, I like the idea of the scheduled check-ins, because the idea is what agreements or conditions would help this person. And so scheduling check-ins to help them shape the solution. And then you're saying give them tools. What kind of tools or what kind of support if it's not working with their manager, so that they can manage the fear they might be making?
I meant something slightly
Oh,
different.
do
So
tell.
when we ask the question, when we ask of the person in question how they would like to shape the role coming forward, it's not just on them to define that, but it's also down to the organization to provide the right, I don't know, input, the right training, the right tools for them, for that person to be able to realize their full potential. So to translate it into in practical terms, if that person says, I feel like to be able to realize my full potential, I need access to training in a specific area, then the organization goes out and works out how they can provide that. So
Okay.
we just focus on the fact that it's like a collaborative effort. It's not just always one person who says this is what I want my role to look like. There has to be like more, more factors, more.
So we talk about sometimes parenting. We've talked about scaffolding, right? What you provide by way of support and protection, and yeah.
I have a
Without doing
question
Thank you, James.
pertaining to that. When you think about someone's growth, if you had to, in your opinion, if you had to measure how much of it is the responsibility of the leader, how much is it the responsibility of the person, what's that weighting look like, in your opinion?
feels like about 70-20 to me.
70% who?
Sorry, 70-30. Sorry, that's not good math. 70-30, 30 being the leader.
Okay. So 70% of the individual, 30% of
Yeah.
the leader. Anybody
Yeah.
else?
Yeah, I think I would agree with the kind of 70-30, or kind of certainly more of it is in the hands of the person. Like I think kind of the leader can make it easier or harder kind of based on kind of what they do. But I think the person like needs to be able to kind of put in the work. I'm just kind of thinking of kind of someone that I used to manage, and kind of she'd been around like not like a long time. She was doing a couple of days a week for us, and she was perfectly happy just to kind of come in, kind of do her job, chat to people, and then leave. Like she didn't necessarily kind of want to grow. And in that case, like there's nothing, and she was kind of perfectly happy in terms of doing that, and she was a good like asset, like kind of for the team. But there's nothing that I could have done then that could have changed that, because she wasn't, going to put that effort in. Whereas kind of people who kind of have put that effort in have grown very quickly.
So in that 30%, give me the top 3 things that the leader should be offering for that person's growth. Jump in.
But a top thing is to have their back, right?
Okay, that's one. Have their back, which means what exactly? What does that look like?
It's all the things we're talking about, really. It's a relationship of trust and confidence, and fundamentally support. Like I am doing what I can to make you flourish and be better and grow.
Okay, let's get someone else. What's the second thing? Jen.
I think there's something about making sure that people understand that that there's like a no blame culture, and that people who work hard and try their best are not going to get into trouble, for want of a better word, or be told off, for want of an even better word, if they have done their best, if they have tried. Cases of absolute wanton negligence, etc., are somewhat different, but in a circumstance where somebody has taken the information they've got and they've done something that might not have been perfect, might have, etc., etc., they're not going to be hauled over the coals for that. That's part and parcel of that, kind of being supportive and allowing people to kind of grow and develop.
Excellent. So that's more of a creating an environment in which mistakes can happen without blame, if you will.
Yes.
So it's having one's back. It's creating an environment. What's a third item? Sian, what about you?
I think probably what I want to say is a bit of a development of James's point. I mean, I agree that it's really important that staff know that you will support them and create an environment for them to flourish, etc. But I think that there is a line between having someone's back, but taking that so far that they don't actually have enough autonomy and they can't learn from doing. And I think you just have to be quite careful about what having someone's back means. I mean, I have a horrible tendency, which I've tried to work on all my life, of basically if something is going wrong, I just go into sort of rescue mode. And sometimes that's appropriate when it matters enough. But sometimes I think you do have to let people get on with it and make some mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And it has to be done in the context of what Jen said, which is that they're not going to get, they're not going to get into trouble for making those mistakes. But I'm saying this in the spirit of someone who's good at knowing about it, but not very good at doing it, which is, basically saying, you know what, it's okay if this person does this in the way that they want to do it. It isn't exactly as we need it to be, but they're going to learn from that process.
So it's having their back, but not too much.
It's sort of having the back in the Jen way, and when James said sort of flourishing and encouraging, but it's not having their back in the sense of trying to fix everything that they're doing, so to avoid problems or mistakes later.
Okay, so still having their back to different levels based on the individual, creating an environment from which growth can happen, knowing, understanding that growth also means having mistakes. Is there a third thing that anybody can think of that is the responsibility of a leader in managing change, managing growth?
In my mind, also modeling that vulnerability. So what James mentioned earlier in his coaching scenario, I think that that's really important because that's the way you show that it's okay to, be open about your anxieties, be open about your own shortcomings. I think that that's how we humans learn, not by being told, you can be vulnerable with me, but by seeing someone who is perhaps higher up do the very thing. And that's the best way to learn the behavior.
Excellent. I love that. So I am putting that into the chat. So having their back at the right level, creating an environment for growth and change, and modeling the behavior. 3 things. Whether you embrace all 3, that's for you to decide as a leader. Simple, right? You guys could have said 3 different things. I'm trying to define what matters to you as leaders at GLP so that we understand and agree that this is how a leader shows up at the organization. And by doing so, this is what we're going to do to support the co-creation of a healthy relationship so that people can flourish in their careers, whether here or the future, right? And it could even be outside the careers, just having a good, healthy relationship with someone, right? You want to have their back. You want to make sure the environment's a healthy one, and you want to model what you'd like them to also, how they'd like to treat you. So all of it works even outside of work. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next area within the program, within the framework. I'm going to get back to sharing here. There we go. So, boom. All right, now we're to the listening actively and evokes awareness. So now we'll coach the scenario that you guys had brought. So that coaching moment, we're going to be using the frameworks that you have used before, the win, the seed, and the scaling. And remember, one question at a time, curiosity over control. So what you're going to do is take the coaching moment again. And if you have them, hopefully it's stuck somewhere near you, the statements to questions, because that little ditty is what's going to help to start to move your brain from the control to curiosity by thinking, I want to say this. Instead, I want to teach your brain to say, I want to ask this. So we want to shift from advice to curiosity, and we want to practice the tools that we have gone over, all the theory that we've gone over. Now it's time to practice those. So I am going to break you back out. I'm going to join a group because we need 3 in each group. So what we want to be sure that we're doing is we're going to choose one person's scenario, preferably one. It sounds like everybody kind of added their own tidbit with their own scenarios, but let's pick one scenario. And what we'll want to do is we'll want to use the when questions. We want to explore what's happening, what are the ideas, as well as what are going to be the next steps. So let's put this into action. And for the group that I join, I'll be the observer. And so what I'm going to be doing is listening and trying to figure out which listening behavior the coachee and the coach are going to be practicing. And then if we have time, I really hope we do, because I'm going to put this away for about 10 to 12 minutes, I want to swap roles. So whoever was the coach is going to become the coachee for their scenario. So pick one scenario at a time. And then when we come back, we're going to want to share one coaching question that helped to shift awareness, so that it's just a simple question. Again, more questions we know in our arsenal on how to evoke awareness and push the accountability and grow that 70% that is on the employee for growth and change. The questions are going to help them in that. So I will give you just a minute. Does everybody have around them their coaching moment, which we just used in the last one? Possibly the win exercise. You could use seed as well, but I think the win is just quicker. And be prepared to ensure that we're focusing on the questions. Use your statements to questions if you have to. If you've got all those kind of ready, I'm going to go ahead and put everybody into our groups. All right. Actually, hold that thought, because we lost Augustina. I'm going to actually just create 2 groups. And yes. Okay, I'm going to end up coming into group 2. Okay, so our first group, just to be clear, I got all the J's. James, Jen, Jenna, and Tiziana. So let's do, let's have James and Jen be the coach and coachee. And Jenna, I'd like you to be the observer in the first one. And then in the second scenario, when we swap roles, we're actually going to swap teams. So then I'd like Tiziana and Jenna to be the coach and coachee, and I'd like James to be the observer. Okay? And then in group 2, Kasha and Rob, you will go ahead and be the coach and coachee. And Sim, I'm going to have you be the observer. And then when we go to swap, we'll have Rob and Sim be the coach and coachee, and I'll have Kasha be the observer. Okay? So again, what we're trying to do here is use the tools, including the listening wheel, so that we can bring awareness to our team members on where their strengths are or where they're leaning towards so that we can continue to grow. And the idea is to use tools that help us get through things quickly. One thing that's been prevalent in all conversations, we move quickly at GLP. So utilizing the tools of win or seed to move through something more quickly is going to lean into the environment we currently have. But it does start to move us from the telling to the asking. Does that make sense? So before I put you off into your rooms, any questions?
How much time do we have for this?
12 minutes. So we have time to move it around.
So 12 minutes for both
groups, yeah. So if if somebody wants to be a little timer, or I'll put a little note in about 6 minutes in to swap, okay? That way you guys can close it up. I want to give everybody a chance to put as much time into it as possible. All right, I'm opening the rooms. There you all go. Sometimes the non-critical ones are the best ones because you get to practice and think, wow, that was really easy to get that done. Oh, okay. So we had a little bit of technical difficulties. Zoom was kicking people off, but hopefully we had some good conversation. Apologies to Kasha and Rob that we did not have a chance to get an observer for you, but I'm sure the conversation, as I heard it, was going quite well. So back to the questions at hand. Was there a breakout question, a coaching question that kind of shifted awareness? So that will be coming, that answer will be coming from the coachee or an observer to say, wow, when they asked that question, that made me really think. And if so, do you remember what the question was? Who wants to go first?
So as the coachee, I'm happy to go first. And there was a coaching question that did make me think, that's what I'm going to do. When I take this back to the real world, that's what I'm going to do. But I didn't write it down and I can't quite remember what that question was.
Do you remember how it might have been framed that made you think, wow, I didn't think of it that way?
Yeah, so we were talking about a piece of work where I need to learn, where I need to be less directive because of my issues around being directive and providing answers as opposed to any concerns about the piece of work that's going to be done. And it was just around the approach and taking a kind of a slightly different tack of actually asking what input is required from me rather than just inputting. And actually then kind of paying attention to that when and where that input is required without wanting to make them feel like I'm washing my hands or I'm not going to help or kind of get involved where work, where there's kind of work that needs to be done and it needs two people doing that work. But what input do they need from me? And not give anything else outside of that input, unless, we start to look like we're falling off a cliff, which I don't think we're going to do.
Got it.
Yeah, I think the question, because this is fundamentally a kind of policing of boundaries issue and teamwork, was about whether or not you felt whose responsibility was it to police And if it was a collective responsibility,
Yeah.
was your team member, did they have what they would need to have to help police it from their end as well? I think that was where we were going.
Yeah.
And then you leapt onto actually, rather than me deciding what my input would be, I'm going to ask what's required.
Nice. Anyone else from the other group? Jenna, you were the observer for the first run, correct?
Yeah.
When you were thinking about the listening skills, was there a certain one of the listening wheel skills that they leaned into or that they leaned away from?
So I thought that James was really good in getting like a background and getting to understand what the issue was, um, like in detail and making sure, um, like he left room for Jen to like come to conclusions sort of on her own by asking these sort of questions. Um, yeah, so I thought it was really good in that sense. And I thought he did a good job in like sort of recognizing why that was stressing Jen out or like why it was an issue.
So if I'm hearing that, and what you're saying is you started to recognize the level of emotion or stress that Jen was starting to show. And James, do you feel like you saw that, or were you just on script?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Jen was very clear in postulating the problem in her head, and a lot of what the conversation was leading to, I guess, and the questions was, well, there are two pieces of this equation, two team members here. What do you think is in that other person's head? Or what do you think, that in sum is kind of so not just trying to take Jen away from just her own anxiety to how there could be a team solution to this, in short.
Did either Jen or James, as Jen was going through it and kind of going through her thoughts, her frustration, her emotions, did it shift what kind of question you might ask next?
Well, I don't know about the emotional side of it. She filled in the details because, again, what she was good at describing was what was in her head, but we didn't have the other part of the equation. So I as a questioner, learnt, what is not the problem here? It was a, series of questions that it's seeking to kind of rule things out in a way. Is there a mismatch of understanding about the project? No. Is that, so it comes down to actually, it's just a policing of boundaries issue between team members. So you have to rule some other things out, right? It's not a performance issue. It's nothing like that. So there was that sort of, process of eliminating other things, then being able to focus on articulating the real issue. And that helps then lead to the idea about the solution, which, as Jenna said, Jen entirely came up with herself.
Nice. Okay. I'm asking around from the observer perspective, what, if anything, came up from an emotional? I mean, did we have the opportunity as we were trying to listen actively? Were we leaning into the social awareness of the emotional intelligence? Was I able to start to recognize? And again, this goes to the coach and the observer. Was I able to start to recognize where the fear was, where the anxiety was, where the stress was, where those emotions started showing up? And if it didn't come up, I'm going to just plant that little seed because it will come up a little bit later to remember to stay aware of the body language, right? The best thing even though we're remote training as well as a remote organization, it's important to pay attention to those things because those things are telling you way more than what's coming out of their mouths. So I'm going to pivot to Rob and Kasha. What were some breakthrough questions that might have happened that made you rethink how you would approach it?
I mean, I think kind of my sense of it was, I'm thinking of the kind of second one at the moment when I was being coached. It was kind of less the questions and the kind of cumulative effect of the questions and making me feel kind of supported and heard and kind of made me think, oh yeah, all right, kind of I would be happy to kind of try and put a similar thing into kind of practice myself because if I was being coached, this is kind of probably what I would like to feel like. But yeah, I mean, I think from the you know, my experience on kind of both sides of it, it's less about trying to come up with a single like kind of killer question and more about the kind of um, cumulative effect of kind of listening intently, being aware, being in the moment, having good um, sort of body language and things like that.
Okay, so it was more of a cumulative effect, no breakthrough question per se. What about you,
Yeah.
Kasha? Did Rob give you a breakthrough question for your problem?
It was a bit similar. I had similar impressions to what Rob just explained. I really appreciated the fact that Rob really was asking open questions, so really not yes, no answers or just questions that really have a very, very limited pool of potential answers. And that really allowed me to open up more and really activate that thought process rather than just saying, yes, how you doing? Good. How is that project gone? Good. You know what I mean? So I just really appreciated Rob's way of asking the questions rather than like a specific one question that stood out for me.
In either one of your sessions when you were playing the coach, did you happen to recognize any emotions coming to the forefront, changes in tone and concern and anything that made you start to pivot what kind of questions you were going to ask?
I mean, what I actually did was kind of spent longer than I anticipated that I would to kind of setting the foundation of the conversation. I guess kind of like because I was thinking about what I said earlier about just like kind of jumping into action. And I was kind of thinking, no, like I'm going to spend a bit longer just kind of laying the groundwork of kind of why we're having this conversation in the first place, what we should kind of hope to get from it, and also just like lowering the stakes of it by just saying we don't need to nail everything in the next kind of few minutes.
And Kasha, you were going to say something as well.
When I was the coach, I was trying to make a very conscious effort. It's not so much of an emotion, but to slow myself down. So you know that thing where you're trying to listen, but you're also almost thinking about what to say next. So I was really consciously trying not to do that. So like just what that looked for me from the inside, it was almost like slowing my brain to not run away with the thought. Um, it didn't come naturally. It still felt like slightly odd. Um, But in both scenarios, both when I was the coach and both when I was a coachee, I must say that I felt quite comfortable having the conversation with Rob. I feel like we both, I don't know, had managed to build that rapport quite quickly.
So what I'm hearing, and it's really amazing, and again, this is the practice. If you guys ever have an opportunity to just do one-on-ones together through this, you'll get better at it each time. You set the foundation, you brought your emotional intelligence, you managed your own self-awareness, you focused then on the relationship, co-creating the relationship by building trust. Rob, you said you took a little bit more time than you had anticipated because you wanted to lay the foundation so that the next steps of asking the questions to elicit awareness and accountability was easier, came easier. There was a more fluid, perhaps. And again, you are a snapshot, but the practice of this is what helps us get there. It's if we can bring our own situations to each other and don't lean into the advice giving and lean into the coaching practices, this becomes a little more second nature. So Jenna, when you were in the coach-coachee relationship, which part did you play?
I think because we was just the three of us, so we just did the one round. So I was just the other.
We didn't understand where Tiziana had gone for a while, so we didn't recalibrate in time to be able
Not
to
a
do
problem.
it.
Okay. So we
Yeah.
have to just make sure in the next one, CM, Jenna, and Tiziana, we get to focus on them since they didn't get nearly as much practice. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. Actually, you know what? Time-wise, let's go ahead and I was going to do a break after this next breakout, but let's do a break now. Let's take 10 minutes to just grab a new drink, a tea. For me, it's going to be another cup of coffee. If you need a little snack, it's 10:23 here. So, and let's say at the half hour, so like 7-ish minutes, 10-ish minutes. Does that work for everyone? And then we'll pick it up from here. Okay.
We make it, 25-2, Carol, would
Okay,
be
you
good.
got it. 25-2.
Thank you.
Hopefully that times well with what Jen needs to. So see you all in a little bit. All right, so fun with breakout rooms and technology. We were focusing on the culmination of the foundation and the co-creating relationship and doing the actual discovery through the coaching of win, seed, any of that stuff. But now we were at the cultivating, learning, and growth, where we take all of that and we start planning. So Jenna and Rob. So Jenna, or actually, let's get with Rob first. Rob, which ADKAR stage was she stuck at?
So in this case, it was kind of A or D or both. Actually, kind of how the conversation went is just because of the kind of nature of what we were talking about. It kind of went just a bit more into like therapy at the start, followed by a bit of win. So yeah, I'm just being kind of fairly kind of flexible with that. But yeah, more of a D, but in the moment it didn't really feel like whipping out the ADKAR framework would have been most useful. Just kind of getting into like what's the problem, why you feel like this? What can we do? How can we help you?
Okay, so Jenna, when you think about the ADKAR, how aware are you or that you understand what is potentially the challenge for you in coaching the situation?
Um, yeah, again, I think it is like the reinforcement. Like I think the awareness and everything is completely fine. But it is like reinforcing ideas and sort of um like moving towards a desired outcome.
Okay. Do you feel like you have the knowledge and when we go to the second question of what's one action you could take to move through and hopefully get to the ability to do the change, both yourself being able to initiate it and also support that person in the change themselves?
Maybe just think more big picture about what the outcomes are and then try and move from just talking about the issue into like actual actions.
Okay. So then, from a coaching perspective, Rob, what were some kinds of the nurture statements that you might have been able to support her with?
I mean, kind of the actual conversation that we went through was kind of more of a role play around the kind of coaching moments. I think kind of literally kind of what I've found in terms of kind of coaching my team is just kind of silences can be the best thing, just because it gives people like a bit of time just to really kind of engage with what they're thinking and going to take some time. Like I probably found those at least as useful as direct questions, because people will probably kind of dive quite kind of deep down and come up with something that they can then work with.
For Jenna, was there one small phrase of support or feedback that really landed for you?
I I don't know. I'm struggling to remember a specific thing.
How did you feel after you had the support, at least the opportunity to talk through the situation?
Yeah, the opportunity to talk is always really useful, obviously, and then you start um sort of thinking beyond the problem and thinking like ways like other perspectives that might be involved.
Okay. I know we're missing Tiziana, unfortunately. Oh, there she is. She's back. Yay, Tiziana. So let's go through how your session gone. I know it was a little disjointed, but overall, from a coaching perspective, who did the coaching? Was it Kasha or James?
It was Kasha.
It's Kasha. So Kasha, from a coaching perspective, did you have a chance to kind of talk through the ad car with Tiziana and see maybe where she is in her growth of herself, her ability to change herself for the situation?
Roughly, yes. And I definitely felt like she's very aware of what the challenges are and she's got the desire to change. So the first three steps, basically, I think they're absolutely covered. But where I sensed a little bit of a struggle, or maybe there's definitely some work to do, is the support that she needs to be able to resolve those challenges, as well as reinforcement. So essentially, the last two bits of the ADKAR, A and R.
So Tiziana, what was one action you could do to move to the A or the R, the support or the reinforcement?
I mean, for me, it's about having the level of support that enables me to deliver at the pace I'm used to deliver. And at the moment, I don't have it. So this is an ongoing conversation that I've been having in the last 3 months. So and that will have to find a resolution.
James, you unmuted. What were you going to say?
Sorry,
hear
I
you.
wasn't. Well, I was going to say it's absolutely right that Kasha's questions elicited pretty quickly what we already knew about Tiziana, which is that awareness and desire and understanding are not issues. I mean, Tiziana is a colleague who is incredibly clear in her mission, and about her abilities, and it's more kind of two questions really. How is she best supported? And I think Tiziana's so clear about her. She does her job incredibly well, and for her, she needs to feel that everybody else is doing their bit as well. That's important. That's a kind of reinforcement in itself. Um, I guess, Kasha, we probably didn't get to growth so much, and actually, in some ways, getting to growth is harder with someone who is so strong on those first bits of ADKAR, right? Ability, understanding, desire. So it's more about, support. Yeah.
So Tiziana, I'm curious. So you said this is something you've been working on for 3 months. What exactly have you been working on?
Sorry, again, the internet connection is a little bit.
Understood. So you said that you'd been working on the support and reinforcement component, or what was it? What's blocking you, do you think, that you've been working on for 3 months?
It's just about an underperforming employee that works closely with me, and so we got to the point where I cannot basically deliver my role at the pace I'm used to, because I need to basically carry out their role as well.
Think about, so Tiziana, regardless of who you talk to, it's Jen, if it's Ben, the awareness that we can have as leaders in better understanding what could be blocking someone is the first thing that we need to figure out, so that we know how to ask the questions. This is a scenario that in my coaching training, everybody brings one of these too. And we're going to go through one more self-reflection, but then the last slide is going to be around blockers. And I think this is a perfect time, and I love that we had the scenario, because it's like it's almost kismet that that's going to be our slide that we're working on, is the blockers of someone. Because there's internal and external blockers. A lot of times we as leaders focus on external blockers, and we forget that that's only part of the challenge. And many times those are ones that we can support and help them through. It's the internal ones. And you've kind of alluded to it a little bit, Tiziana. In this scenario, it could very well be self-motivation, self-awareness. It could be those internal blockers that we need to potentially focus on. So we won't go further into that, but I appreciate you guys taking the time, Jenna and Tiziana, for bringing your problems to us so that we can help to continue to solidify the coaching. So moving on to the next slide is about the 3 gifts of growth. So what we've done today is we've really pulled together a lot of the stuff that we've been working on. And in your packet, I've given you the detailed list of what we went through in session 2 as something that you can now reference on paper. And the 3 gifts are going to be focused on what is your growth. Once you can focus internally on what your growth has been during this entire training process, and you'll continue to find those gifts, I encourage you to think about this as a daily reflection. If you have the opportunity to look back on the day at something that was frustrating, and instead of looking at it through that lens of frustration and negativity, how do I shift my brain to something that is more opportunistic, more positive? This is straight out of positive intelligence coaching. So if you think about gift of knowledge, several different ways that you could have that gift of knowledge. And again, please reference your pre-work. The gift of power or the gift of inspiration. What you're able to start to see here is all those obstacles that get put in your way are there for you to grow. And yes, frustration is probably the first go-to emotion. Anger, fear, resentment, all those things, because you're just looking for a clear path. And many times we don't get that clear path, and it's hard sometimes to see what is the opportunities that just presented themselves and how am I going to grow from it. So what I'd like you to do is just take 5 minutes, think about what we've done this morning, think about what you've learned, what you've kind of recognized in yourself, Maybe there were moments of inspiration. Use your reflections here, and just start to ask yourself, what were the gifts that I've even gotten today in this session? And just do a self-reflection. So take a time. There's some lines in your or you just write down a pad of paper. But I'd like you to just take a moment and say, okay, this is a gift that I got today. Good, bad, or indifferent. It's a gift I got today. Before we move on to our blockers. So go ahead and look at your pre-work. I'm just going to keep us here. I'm not going to put us away into different groups. We're just going to take a little moment to write down what some of the gifts are that we've learned about ourselves and about what's happened within this group that's helped to increase one of these 3 gifts or all of these gifts. move to our blockers. So inner and outer blockers. So coaching is about igniting the change in others, but it's helping them see the opportunities and shifts that can help them in the situation or in their career or in any relationship. But what gets in the way of really helping others change and actually change that sticks? People don't necessarily resist change, but they resist being changed. And our blockers, both internal and external, determine how receptive we are to feedback or growth or coaching. Let's talk about internal blockers. So when you're looking at this table, the inner blockers distort how we see ourselves, others, or possibilities. And as you look through this chart, I'd love to understand what's kind of running through your minds. So take a minute and kind of look at this. You'll find that coaches, when you're talking to them, they probably say some of these things like that's an assumption or that's a limiting belief. Take a look. If you think about those, I'd love to know what's kind of running through your mind. James, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so yeah, I was actually thinking that there may be not so much of this at GLP, some of these as there are in other organizations I've known. I think, and I was thinking about my own coaching scenario where actually the blocker was almost none of these, although it might be, whilst not being an ego attachment issue, really, it controls certainly a control issue, a question around whether, GLP is an environment in which, as we know, fast moving, as you've recognized, dexterity, flexibility are required, good communication around that, or the honesty, etc., that we've talked about, feed into that. And I'm actually thinking that sometimes there's just almost a personality, that can be a personality fit issue. That's the blocker, which is that someone who likes their life to be highly audited and regulated and predictable is going to find it difficult to flourish in what is frankly a more chaotic is too strong, but very fast moving and diverse environment. So sorry, I was very much, as I say, rather reflecting on my own coaching scenario, but we're actually none of these, other than perhaps that control element, really resonated as the problem that I'm facing.
I love that. Let's stay there. Yeah. So which one of these inner blockers resonates most with you? It seems to be the more the control thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we've talked a lot about emotional intelligence in coaching and it's so important. But obviously it's so much easier when there's it's coming from the other side as well, right? When there's a mutuality, and that just, that immediately turbocharges it, because that ability to connect, build that trust, honesty, etc., is so much easier when the I don't want to say when the emotional intelligence is not there, but when that connection when you're having to try and force that connection more, that's when I find it challenging. Because that almost leads you into thinking, okay, well, do I just now have to be directive because whatever I'm doing here is not enabling in the way that I hope that it might. That's the challenge I face. And as I say, it seems to me the blocker is more almost a personality fit issue than some of these other things. I'm leaping.
Okay, so Jenna, which one's resonating with you most? Which one is your likely inner blocker?
I think probably like an anxiety loop. I think when you work in such a fast-paced thing, fast-paced environment, like tasks can build up quite a lot and cause a lot of anxiety and leads to like overwhelm, which can be quite paralyzing. Um, yeah, so probably that one.
And I'm sorry, Carol, if you were asking me about my blocker, I'm sorry.
No, I'm using what you said.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, I was just like, what happens when you see these? Many times when I show these, they're like, oh my God, I'm all of them. I have all the blockers.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's
that's
interesting.
a different
So,
question.
yeah, when I say what happens when you look at these things, people are like, okay, I hate myself. I'm afraid now. But you called one out, and I was like, well, let's roll with it. So I'm rolling with it. Rob, which one of these inner blockers do you think hobbles you when you're dealing with things?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I guess you would kind of put it under fear, but I think there is kind of a comfort zone thing sometimes. Like I'm kind of thinking both about kind of myself, but also, kind of people that I coach and gonna have coached. If you've done something like 100 times and you know how to do it, and you're like, yeah, this is it. This is gonna something that I know how to do. I'm skilled at. I know that if I do this, this will happen and I'll be good. There's kind of a tendency just to do that because you're like, yeah, it's a guaranteed win. Whereas the stuff which is more of a growth over time by nature is things that you're not very good at or you kind of haven't done very much.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess there's like a tendency, which to try and consciously push back against oh yeah, here's kind of something that's just appeared that I know that I'm good at, so I'm gonna go and do this.
So a lot of these, if you think about them, if you just take a moment and you start to think about the different inner blockers, one, these are all things that are inner, which means we control how we're going to react. But a lot of this stuff happens in our minds, neuroscience wise, based off of past experiences. And the question that one can always ask when you're about to feel or have any of these inner blocker kind of moments is what in my past is making me believe that, right? So a lot of it leans into maybe some of the limiting beliefs, but these are all limiting items here. And it's because somebody critiqued you that you now have an inner critic, because somebody put their beliefs on you. So it's limiting how you want to see other things. So it's the opportunity. So using the last exercise of the 3 gifts, instead of carrying all of these inner blockers in a backpack and taking them into every scenario as it just gets heavier and heavier and heavier, how do you take out all of those things that might have caused these blockers and say, where's the gift in that blocker? What happened today, right? So even the fear blocker, I have come to the point now where if I didn't get out in the house on time, I am convinced that the universe gave me a gift, and there is a car accident that happened that did not include me. So I just look at it like I'm not going to sit here and get angry or upset or start to worry or any of that stuff, because and I know that human behavior, if I get out of the house late, I'm going to rush. I have a greater chance of risk. Instead, start to look at the gift. This was going to send me, I'm now supposed to go take this route instead, and it's going to be better because of something I don't understand yet. So I show you the inner blockers because these are the things we can control. And it's also what we want to use when we're trying to really find out what's holding other people back from changing. Then, of course, we have the external blockers. Those blockers are environmental, systemic, relational factors that make change harder because some of these things are the parameters that we're told to work in. And so those are the external blockers. So when you take a look at this, take a moment, I'd be curious of, do we have any of these outer blockers here at GLP? I'll have Tiziana or Jen start once they have a chance to look at it.
I mean, I think, we've talked a lot this afternoon about the speed at which we work, the pace at which we work, and therefore workload and pressure definitely plays a part in, we talked about this afternoon about taking a step back, giving people time to think. But that is completely opposed to the pace at which we collectively feel that we need to be working. And therefore, that is something I think that potentially, kind of gets in the way of, well, actually, we just need an answer. We haven't got time for somebody to stop and think and work out how to do it and learn from their mistakes. It just needs to happen. So that definitely, I think, potentially kind of steps up, in kind of certain, kind of environments where everybody is trying to deliver at pace.
Tiziana, what about you?
Yeah, so having a look at the list of blockers, I have to say that from my own perspective, we don't have much of a systemic constraint or inconsistent reinforcement. But the rest of the list, yes, we do have them. And for me, being someone who has been leading the business transformation, of course, the most resistance to change is linked to cultural norms. But this is completely organic, I think. It's really normal to see in every organization where you are transforming their operating model and so on. And yes, definitely we have an issue with unclear roles and expectations, and of course, workload and pressure as well. But this is completely normal. These are things that can be easily fixed anyway.
So when you change the contextual barriers, you're able to address the internal blockers a little bit more clearly. So things to think about. The inner outer blockers is part of change management. And Tiziana, that's your whole freaking job. And communication is a positive catalyst in dealing with any of these blockers. Over communication, the why, not so much the how, helps to develop what these barriers will look like. We will always have componental barriers, right? We have a company culture, we have company norms, we have company systems. There will be moments of psych safety, but it's the communication and how we communicate the why helps to reduce the inner blockers, because the fear and all of those inner blockers dissipate. So things to consider as you are working one-on-one with your team, but even on a company-wide level.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say that, I mean, I agree that a bunch of these outer blockers are present. I would say that the strong health around the inner blockers list is a big part of the management exercise in order to enable people to cope as efficiently as possible with some of these outer blockers.
Good call. Yeah, they go hand in hand. So one is really something internally that you have to address. And from coaching, you can help others address. But the external blockers are things that you are held accountable to or responsible to as a leader in the organization. So we always have the WIFM. Anybody know what WIFM means? It's right there. What's in it for me? You're always going to have WIFMs. And the thing about WIFMs is it shifts the focus from service and curiosity into ego and control. So we're trying to get away from the ego and control. So we have to understand that that's natural. What's in it for me for this change? Why am I here talking to this lady from America who hates, their political environment, right? What's in it for me? Then what's in it for you is an opportunity for growth, right? So, but you have to understand when you're talking to your team or when you're doing major shifts in an organization, this is what the blockers are trying to address. What's in it for me? Like, why am I going to shift and change? How is that going to benefit me? And it goes back to our self-reflection of what are the gifts, right? So it is going to benefit you. You need to define how this is going to benefit you. But when you look at some of the WIFM modes and how it shows up, here are some ways to use coaching to reframe that. So, Kasha, I'll let you give me your first reaction.
My first reaction to this list?
Yeah, take a moment to read it, but I'll just leave it. The floor is open to you for commentary.
Well, I think that we all sometimes fall into thinking in those ways. It's really easy, again, with the time pressures, the fast pace. I feel like, particularly for myself, I feel like I could very easily fall into thinking that I don't have time for coaching, that I need to, I just need to get stuff done. But as it's explained on the slide, it's a false economy because it might save time right now, but further down the line, it will actually cost us time in the long run. From my own perspective, and really as an organization, I don't believe that we have a scarcity mindset. So the second line here, if I coach them, they might outperform me. I don't believe, at least the vast majority of my colleagues, I really don't see anyone thinking that way. So I would say that we're not in that mindset at all. Because what I have found for myself that we are so supportive of each other that I feel like that sort of competition thing for me is a little bit unfathomable. Um, and then I just wanted to make a final comment on the last line.
Yeah.
I feel like, again, it's very easy to become kind of defensive and rather than see maybe the issue in ourselves, think, oh, it's the other person's problem because they don't understand my position or they don't understand enough about my situation. So again, I feel like as human beings, we do tend to get defensive, but it's again about trying to recognize when this is happening and trying to conquer falling into that trap. Because of course the defensiveness kind of blinds us and then we don't see, the learning, the gift or whatever. We kind of like have flaps that make our just really narrows our horizon.
Kind of like the worst things where they don't want to
Yes,
believe.
precisely.
Yeah, a WIFM mindset isn't necessarily wrong. It is honestly, it's highly entrepreneurial. It really kind of is those sparking potential moments for innovation. So I don't want to necessarily frame this as bad. It says it there, it creates conditional leadership. And what we're trying to evolve to is what's in it for us. We're trying to create the collaborative environment. So it's a collectiveness as opposed to a singularity. But it is components that keep our team members blocked. It makes it harder for us to coach them. And this whole program is creating awareness and understanding tools that are out there to help you become better leaders. So we're going to do our last exercise of the day. And this one is, yep, that's showing. Okay. Sorry. My computer just did a little blink. So I'm going to ask you guys to jot down, when I try to coach or support someone through change, what gets in my way most often? And that goes back to an inner blocker or an outer blocker. And I'll pop back to that screen if you'd like. But some of these things I've already heard you guys say, like I just want to jump in to solve it. I just want to get things done quickly. And that we don't have a whole lot of time. So we recognize what our blockers are. Now we need to actively modify the behaviors so that we can coach through the blockers. Once you jot those puppies down, I'm then going to put you out into 2 groups. We're 3 and 3? Yes, we're 3 and 3. Where you guys can discuss the 2 blockers, how maybe which one influences you the most. And then as a group, choose a reframing statement. So that's going to be the WIFM, right? So how do I turn that blocker into awareness? So just take a few notes on this one here. I did not send this over, I don't think. I did have the WIFM. Oh no, that's your homework. Never mind. Take little notes about what I'd like you to do on your own. So go ahead and take a moment. I'm going to move back to that other screen with the inner and outer blockers. So when you try to coach or support someone through change, what gets in your way the most? So let me go back to here. That's an outer blocker. And I'm just going to kind of flip back and forth between inner and outer blockers for the next couple of minutes, maybe 2 minutes. Look at this from a you lens, not necessarily. So for you, if any of these outer blockers are happening, which one is affecting you the most in your ability to coach? We'll go one more time back to inner. One more time to outer. And then let's go to how to reframe. So this is kind of goes to that exercise we did around statements to questions, right? This is, how can I reframe this in my mind? All right, so back to the exercise. Going to get our groups ready. Just going to do 2 rooms. Okay, So you're going to discuss what you wrote down, which one you can influence and how of those blockers. And then as a group, come up with a reframe statement. So I'm going to give you guys, oh, let's see here. Let's do, what time is it? Let's do 4 minutes. All right, I'm opening the rooms. Hopefully I don't lose you, Tiziana. So efficient.
My daughter just come back from childcare. She came into the room and she said, "Mommy, I want to see you work." So she stayed here for about, I don't know, a couple of minutes, and then she goes, she's 3.5. She goes, "Mommy, I'm gonna go downstairs because I don't want to distract you."
Ah,
Very
I thought she was
sweet.
going to say, Mummy, your work is really boring. I'm going
I think
downstairs.
that's more like it.
Mom,
And
you
then
just
she goes,
sit and talk.
"I will see you when you're done, Mommy."
Ah, that's really sweet.
Yeah, she might pop back in. Let's see.
Yeah, she's got big.
She has gotten big. She's really big and really outspoken as well.
Uh-oh. She looks
No
like
Like
idea where
a
she
what?
gets.
looks like a proper person now. Like,
For
when kids are
sure.
small, they just look like kids, and then all of a sudden they turn into kind of looking like
Big,
people. Yeah.
So
for
good.
sure.
All right. So let me get some volunteers to share. So what blocker surprised you the most? Who wants to chime in?
I think I was most surprised that my blocker was not on the list.
Oh, do tell.
Habit. My internal blocker is habit.
Mm.
And it's breaking the habit of how I work and how I have meetings and like how they work. And it's like remembering to do it differently. So, and it's, similar to sort of any habit that you're trying to change, is that it's not easy. And it requires a lot of thought and a lot of, kind of effort and all of those sorts of things. And quite often, if you kind of link that to the time pressure of you're dashing into a meeting from another meeting and you've got another meeting to go to after that meeting, and you're trying not to forget the things from the meeting you've just been in, because by the time you get out of this meeting, you'll have forgotten all of those things you said you'll do, and then you've got another meeting to go to. So that's 2 rounds of meetings that you're going to forget about. To then remember to do something different in your management one-to-one is a bit of a,
Yeah.
but the reframe, and I was really, when I kind of went in knowing what my internal blocker was, but a bit of a, boy, I've got no idea how to reframe that. But actually the group have done that for me, which is great, and actually kind of links into the time reframe of how do I grab small moments. And it was what Sam was talking about earlier about being step by step and not being an overnight shift. But how do I grab small moments of success, of which I have had 2 or 3 over the last couple of, the last 2 or 3 weeks, where I thought, yes, I did it. Yeah. So, but that was a sort of the reframe on that one, really.
Very good. Yes, when we can reframe it, it shows us that it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I'll
like that.
report back next time as to whether I have managed to act on that reframe.
Very good. What about somebody from the other group? What blocker surprised you the most? Tiziana's got a smirk on her face. She's like,
To be honest, I didn't get to hear exactly what Rob was discussing because I had a technical issue with the rooms, as always now. But I can just share that by reading the list, I actually identified my inner blocker as emotional hijack.
Yeah.
So I think this is something that really activates me. So yeah.
I think we share that blocker. Very much so. Did you have a chance to reframe that with the group?
Yeah, actually, I think the more of a reframe is more of a rule, I would say. So when I feel sort of activated, I should be slowing my pace and ask a question, for example, so that I can take a step back. I can just take a breath and then, give myself a moment, and then the other person, they respond, they provide me with clarity, basically.
Awesome. Hey, Rob, I have a question for you. So, how could recognizing blockers, either inner or outer, improve the coaching relationship?
So I think if it's especially an emotional one, like if you can recognize it earlier before it kind of sends you around a loop that you've maybe done in the past and isn't a productive one, then you can get in front of it and just say, all right, how can we do this in like a bit of a different way that's gonna take us to a different ending, maybe kind of via a different method. But yeah, I think kind of stopping repetition, I guess, is a kind of key point, because if you are working under a particular blocker, then you're probably just going to end up in the same place that you always ended up. So
Yep.
if you can recognize that, then you can stop it.
You look like somebody in the witness protection program a little bit, but you're absolutely right. So when we can name the blocker, like you just said, when we can name it, we can coach around it. And that's both the internal coaching. So if you could recognize what's in you, but know that every moment that you are in these groups coaching yourself, those are the tools that you're going to need to coach the others. So our job as coaching leaders isn't necessarily to remove every barrier, but it is to increase the awareness and the choice in how we respond to those blockers. So think of it as the inner blockers kind of shrink your perspective, and the outer blockers are going to test your resilience. So the with them, the what's in it for me, that's the subtle one. It kind of keeps our leadership orbiting around us as opposed to seeing the big picture. So remember, we want to shift the with them to what's in it for us. All right, I'm going to share. We've got very little left because it's time. So we are, I want to just go over the homework real quick. So in the back of it, it's still more focus on ADKAR. I'd say every time that you're in a situation where there's a change in your mindset, a change in your practice, especially Tiziana, who's going through so much with the organization, she's asking you to basically keep looking at this and do your with them reflection. So that's your homework from this session. And for closing the day, think about the self-reflection from the packages. So the 3 gifts. Anytime that we have had an opportunity to think about what's keeping me from success, or what's keeping my team from success, or what's keeping me from being a coaching leader, those are self-reflection moments. I'd love to know, you can email me because I don't want to keep everybody long, which topics today were most helpful and why, and which areas do you feel you need help with still, but which ones helped you learn most about yourself, either as a person or as a leader. The next time we're together, we are going to focus on a stop, start, and continue, because we will have gone through a lot of tools. We've created a lot of awareness, and we now need to commit. So what we did in the 4th section, which we didn't really get a chance to do because it just didn't get us there, is the planning, right? We now need to, we know how to set a foundation. We know how to create the relationship. We know how to coach through our tools. We need to start planning on how we're going to address the outer blockers, address the inner blockers, and what's our plan going forward. So that's today's session, and I stayed relatively on time. Even with our technical difficulties. So I want to thank everyone so much. If there is, please feel free to email me anytime. I said that to all of my people who I coach and all of my groups. So if you have any questions in the meantime, or you want to just get on a quick phone call. I recognize we're about 5 hours, but I usually work until about 8 o'clock at night. So by all means. Jen, is there anything you want to say before we close out?
No, just thanks, Carol, for a really interesting session this afternoon. Thanks to everybody for sharing and for engaging. I've definitely, I mean, I will email you, probably be tomorrow now, but I will. But I've definitely taken some learning away. So yeah, it's been good.
Thank you guys so much. James, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. Heads up that our next session is also pretty much my 30th wedding anniversary, so I'm going to be on a beach somewhere, I think, but we'll try and work around that somewhere or another.
Bless your heart.
Yeah.
All right, and we'll keep recording these. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this is all copacetic because last time it wasn't. If I have to re-record it, so I'll get it over to you, Jen, and I'll put it up on YouTube with
Perfect. Bro. Thanks so
Carol.
much.
Have a
See you
great day,
later.
everyone.
Thanks, Carol.
Bye.
Bye.